be acceptable in your sight, O God, our strength and our salvation. Amen. Let me begin by asking a real simple question that's probably relevant to almost all of us. How many of you here endure back pain? Boy, you do, huh? You're a young'un. Raise your hands. How many of you, let me put it another way, how many of you have bad backs? Raise your hands up high. Yeah, a good percentage of you suffer from back pain. And the interesting thing about it, because it is no fun, is that, it doesn't take much to cause it. You reach over to pick something up, you bend down to tie your shoe, and suddenly, wow, you just kind of light up. And even though it's one particular spot, it radiates throughout your body. A tweak, a tear, a spasm, a ruptured disc, a nerve, something happens. We don't know what it is. We just know that no matter what our grade was in anatomy, at that moment, we know that everything runs through that one spot in our spinal cord. Do I get an amen on that? Yeah. Yeah, anybody who's had that knows that when it happens, you just light up like a Christmas tree. Well, in today's gospel, we find Jesus dealing with someone who has a bad back. We find him dealing with a woman who is unable to stand up straight. Her back is so out of whack. And she has endured this condition for 18 years. Which, as I said earlier, was probably the majority of her life. And we're also told that Jesus heals her. He doesn't heal her because she expresses any particular piety or faith. She doesn't even really come to him expecting that. There is something about this woman that catches his eye. He sees her out of the corner of his eye, and her experience, her situation touches him, and he touches her, extending her God's grace. He pauses to make her whole. Now, we do not know what the specific malady is that racked her body, besieged this woman. And it really doesn't matter, because where my mind went as I read this text, where my mind went is that all of us, sooner or later, will endure some kind of back pain. Everybody here will. Because the back pain I'm talking about is not necessarily literal, but at least figurative. Because all of us endure things that break us down, weigh us down, bend us over, whether it's physical, emotional, mental, or spiritual. There are things in life that come at us that, like this woman, bend us over. And the more they happen, the more they hit us, the farther and farther and farther we stoop, until we cannot find within ourselves the ability to stand up straight, to recognize who we are, to find that inner core that helps us to propel ourselves upward. Let me tell you what some of these things are. We get weighed down by all the what ifs in life. What if I had done this? What if I hadn't done that? Why did I do that? Anybody here ever say that to themselves? Seriously. And felt the weight of what that means? How about the emptiness of a longing, a personal loss, or a desire for a personal relationship or a gain? Has anybody been weighed down with that to the point where you see everything you do as through the eyes of that loss? Or a lack of direction, which produces a sense of helplessness. There's nothing worse in your life than being at a point where you don't know where to turn or what to do or who to speak to. There is a weight which comes with that debilitates us and knocks us low. Or the weight of why couldn't things have been different? Anybody here not suffer or feel weighed down at some point from those? To where you are unable to maybe even get out of bed? These things bend us just as low and sometimes more than things that weigh us down physically or attack our skeletal structure. They hit us and they knock us over. And we can't kid ourselves. They hurt just as much as anything else that could happen, nagging at us to the point where they break us down. And life has an endless supply of those. An endless supply. Just about the time you turn the corner, wham, another thing hits you, right? You got an adolescent in your house. A parent gets ill. A spouse decides to do something out of the ordinary. All of a sudden, it just hits you, and it comes out as a surprise. Do you get? But Jesus, notice how Jesus responds to this woman. Notice how he acts with her. And in the process of what he does, he lifts her up, and he takes the weight from her shoulders. And he does so by encouraging her. He encourages her not to allow her disability, not to allow her physical struggle, whatever it may be, not to allow that to define her. He says, don't let that define her. Don't let your illness or your struggle become your identity. That is not who you are. That is just one thing that's a part of your life, but it's not intrinsically who you are. And he does this so simply. He heals her by reminding her that the labels the world would throw on you, the categories that the world and society would put you in, are secondary to the one God gave you birth to. He turns to her and he says, you are a daughter of Abraham. You are a child of God. First and foremost, that is your identity. First and foremost, cling to that and you find strength. See your life through that and the rest will become tertiary. Do you get it? Do you understand what Jesus is saying? He is saying you may have diabetes, but you are not a diabetic. You are a child of God with diabetes. He's saying you may suffer from depression, you may fight depression day and day and day, but that is not who you are. You are a child of God dealing with depression. So you have osteoporosis. You are not an osteoporotic. That is not who you are. Jesus says you are a child of God dealing with osteoporosis. And there's a whole different perspective when you see it that way. There's a whole different self-value and self-worth and strength that comes from that. You can't put me in that box. I'm not going to let you because God says I'm more. I'm more. And that's what helps me to get up out of bed and put one foot in front of another and continue to labor on lest I collapse. And there are times when we could all collapse because everybody here is carrying something. Everybody has got something. You know, what's the saying? Be nice to the people you meet because they're carrying something. Everybody's carrying something, but that something only limits us when we allow it to limit us and eventually to define us. Put us in a box, constrict who we are, what we can still offer, and what we have to give. And what Jesus did is lift this woman's load so that she could stand tall. She stood tall, but I would submit to you, she doesn't just stand tall in body, she stands tall in spirit. He reboots her sense of value in order that she could face and conquer life. And that's what we all need. We need that reboot. We need that uplift. That's what, as Christ's disciples, we should be offering to one another, because no matter how our bodies fail, and they will fail, there is still a soul and a spirit inside. And no matter how heavy our emotions may become, that spirit inside us wants to be freed, and it wants to sing. It wants to sing. It's what Jesus seeks to give us again and again. I want to take a few moments this morning and pause to watch a video that I found that reminds us of this. It displays a situation of an individual which most people would lack the patience and the passion required to bring out the child of God in this person. But in the process, even if just in a small way, one individual does this for another, and we see her overcome her body as she, at least for a few moments, again stands tall.
when people are very old and deteriorated and no one enters their world and they're just sitting there, they will withdraw inward more and more. And their desperate need for connection is all now inside. And if a person is all alone, even if they're very, very deteriorated, there's a longing for this kind of closeness. Mrs. Wilson? Hello? You want me to sit? Do you see me do it? Gladys Wilson is a wonderful example of a person who is in the phase of repetitive motion, where people use movements, repetitive movements, because they don't have any more speech, or very little speech. But they have human needs that need to be expressed. You cry. Crying with a tear right here in your face. That little pain belongs to you. You're very sad. And you sing. That's scary. You're afraid. And if this person sits with their eyes closed, rocking back and forth, and maybe there's a tear coming down, there's a need there. There's a little tear that's coming up. You feel it? You feel a little tear? If you gently use touch, and I touched Gladys Wilson with a fingertips right here on the cheek, is where the mother usually touches the child. If you touch it into there, it looks up. And every cell remembers where it was touched by the mother. And often that person knows, even if they can't say a word at that moment, they don't talk, but or they don't want to talk. But there's a communication. And that person is no longer alone. So you let me know with that? Okay? Just a little. Think I could be with you in tears for a minute? Jesus loves me, this I know. For the Bible tells me so. I use music, because when speech is gone, music, especially in Gladys Wilson, it was religious music, but there's an emotion tied to it and safety tied to it. So I used her old church song. Jesus loves me. Yeah. Jesus loves me. The Bible tells me so. What I did was, when she moved, I moved with her. And when I was singing, she didn't sing with me. So I matched the intensity of my voice to the intensity of her movement. And pretty soon, for a split second, we became one person. Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. The Bible tells me so. So at one point, when she got very quiet and very peaceful, and my voice became very quiet as hers and very peaceful, my breathing slow to her breathing, she pulled me to her, and I moved with her. And for her, at that moment, I believe I was a symbol of her mom.
Spirit is carrying a heavy load, all of us are. But in treating each other as Jesus treats this woman, as a son or a daughter of Abraham, as a child of God, we become released from those things that would imprison and hold us down. We are lifted up. Our aching backs are made whole. We are set free. And so we are called this day, I challenge you this day to say, will you do this for someone this week? And at the same time, will you let Jesus do this for you? Amen.